In a world on the brink of darkness, one young man discovers a simple key, a hidden door, and a power he never knew existed, leading him on a journey to face his deepest fears, confront an ancient evil, and ultimately unlock the strength within himself to save Eldoria from destruction. Will he prevail, or will the shadows consume everything he holds dear? Join the adventure to find out. In the quiet, unremarkable town of Millfield, where everyone knew everyone else's business and life moved at a predictable pace, lived a young man named Alex. His days unfolded in a repetitive cycle filled with the subtle hum of routine. Alex, in his early 20s, had a calm demeanor, a soft-spoken voice, and an unassuming presence. He worked at the local library, a modest stone building that had weathered many seasons, its shelves filled with stories far more exciting than his own life. Alex found solace among the books, where he could lose himself in worlds of adventure and fantasy without ever leaving his safe, predictable existence. Though he was content in his solitude, there was a lingering sense of emptiness that he couldn't quite name. His coworkers, mostly elderly women who cherished quiet, appreciated his dedication but often worried about his lack of social life. "You should go out more, dear," Mrs. Harlan, the head librarian, would say. Alex would only smile, mumbling something about being too busy. One particularly gloomy evening, when the sky hung low with clouds, Alex was tasked with cleaning out a neglected storage room at the back of the library. The room, rarely touched for years, was filled with dust-covered boxes, broken furniture, and piles of forgotten books. As he moved a stack of old encyclopedias, a thick, leather-bound book fell to the ground with a thud. The spine was cracked, and the cover bore no title, just an ornate, faded symbol. Intrigued, Alex picked it up, wiping off the dust with his sleeve. He opened the book cautiously, revealing brittle, yellowed pages filled with handwritten notes in an unfamiliar script. As he flipped through, a small object slipped from between the pages and landed at his feet. It was a key, small, rusty, and engraved with the same symbol as the book's cover. Holding it in his palm, Alex couldn't help but feel a strange warmth emanating from it. Curious, he turned the key over, noticing how it seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. A sudden draft rustled the pages of the old book, and Alex glanced around, half expecting someone to be there. But the room remained still, cloaked in the musty scent of old paper. Unnerved but fascinated, he slipped the key into his pocket and took the mysterious book with him, deciding to examine it more closely later. That night, Alex could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about the key and the strange feeling it gave him. He tossed and turned, his mind replaying the moment he found it. Finally, as he began to drift into sleep, vivid dreams enveloped him. In his dream, he was standing in a vast, dark forest, a single ancient door set into a massive tree. Vines twisted around it, and the air was thick with fog. He could hear faint whispers, beckoning him to come closer. As he reached for the door, he awoke suddenly, his heart pounding. The dream left him feeling unsettled yet curious. Unable to resist, he retrieved the key from his coat pocket and examined it again, tracing the pattern with his finger. The symbol seemed almost familiar now, as if it had been waiting for him all along. A sense of anticipation built within him, an unexplainable feeling that this key was more than just an old trinket. The next morning, despite feeling sleep-deprived, Alex couldn't get the dream out of his mind. Was it a coincidence, or was there something more to the key in the old book? As he got ready for work, a faint sense of purpose flickered within him. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt as if something extraordinary was on the horizon. Later that day, while the library was particularly quiet, Alex couldn't resist the urge to revisit the storage room. He couldn't explain why, but he felt drawn there. As he moved the boxes around, his eyes caught something he hadn't noticed before, a section of the wall that seemed oddly misaligned. He moved a heavy, crumbling bookshelf to the side, revealing an old wooden door almost entirely concealed behind it. The door looked ancient, its wood darkened and warped by time. Ivy tendrils clung to its frame, though there were no plants inside the room. At its center was a keyhole that perfectly matched the shape of the rusty key in his pocket. Alex hesitated, his heart racing, as if the door itself was alive, waiting for him to unlock it. With trembling fingers, he slid the key into the lock, and to his astonishment, it turned smoothly. A low, humming vibration rippled through the air, and a faint golden glow seeped from the edges of the door. Alex swallowed his fear, pushing the door open. A bright, blinding light flooded the room, forcing him to shield his eyes. When the light faded, he found himself no longer in the dusty storage room but standing on a grassy hill under a sky painted with streaks of pink and gold. Birds with shimmering feathers darted through the air, and flowers that glowed faintly in the twilight swayed in the breeze. A sense of wonder and disbelief washed over him. Had he just stepped into another world? His instincts screamed to go back, but his curiosity outweighed his caution. Taking a hesitant step forward, he felt the ground pulse faintly beneath his feet, as if the land itself was breathing. Suddenly, a rustling sound caught his attention. A small, sprightly squirrel with bright, intelligent eyes hopped onto a nearby stone, eyeing him curiously. To Alex's surprise, it spoke in a high, cheerful voice. "Ah, you must be the keeper. Finally, we've been waiting for you." Alex's jaw dropped, struggling to process the talking animal. Before he could respond, the squirrel continued, "Name's Theo. Been guarding this entrance for decades. You're a bit late, aren't you?" Stammering, Alex managed to ask, "Where am I?" Theo smiled, his whiskers twitching. "Welcome to Eldoria, friend. A place of legends, magic, and a bit of trouble lately. But that's why you're here. You hold the key." The reality of the situation hit Alex all at once. He had just stepped through an impossible door into a world that defied everything he knew. A world that, according to Theo, needed him. As Alex tried to steady his racing thoughts, Theo leaped onto his shoulder, his tiny claws gripping the fabric of Alex's jacket. The squirrel's weight was surprisingly solid, a comforting reminder that this bizarre scene was real. The air around them shimmered faintly, alive with the pulse of unseen magic, and the wind carried a melody unlike anything Alex had ever heard, a blend of rustling leaves, distant chimes, and the soft calls of unseen creatures. "Come on, no time to stand around gawking," Theo chattered, his bushy tail flicking with urgency. "If you're the keeper, there's much to do and not much time to do it." Alex stumbled after the tiny guide, his boots sinking slightly into the lush, springy grass. As they moved deeper into this strange world, the landscape transformed around them. Trees with trunks as wide as houses towered overhead, their branches stretching into the violet-hued sky like the arms of ancient giants. Some of the trees bore fruits that glowed softly, casting pools of warm light on the forest floor. "Where exactly are we?" Alex finally managed to stammer, his mind still struggling to comprehend the impossible beauty around him. "Eldoria," Theo replied, glancing back with a flicker of amusement in his beady eyes. "A realm where myths and legends take root, where the very air hums with ancient power. It's been waiting for you, Keeper." "Keeper?" Alex echoed, bewildered. Theo's eyes sparkled. "Yes, Keeper of the Key. You hold the power to unlock the ancient bonds that bind this world. It's a heavy responsibility, but the key chose you, and that means Eldoria has chosen you." They reached a clearing where towering, luminescent crystals jutted from the ground like frozen lightning, their surfaces pulsing gently with an internal glow. In the center of the clearing stood a stone circle, the air around it shimmering as if it existed on the edge of reality itself. Theo scampered down from Alex's shoulder and took a seat on one of the stones, his tiny chest puffed out proudly. "Now, brace yourself," Theo warned. "She can be a bit intense." Before Alex could question what he meant, the crystals began to hum, their light intensifying until the clearing was bathed in a brilliant, ethereal glow. A swirling mist rose from the ground, coalescing into a tall, graceful figure draped in flowing silver ropes. Her face was both ageless and ancient, her eyes deep pools of violet light that seemed to peer directly into Alex's soul. "Welcome, Keeper," the figure said, her voice echoing like a chorus of whispers. "I am Lyra, the guardian of Eldoria." Alex felt his knees weaken under her gaze, a mixture of awe and fear tightening his throat. He struggled to find words, his mind reeling from the strangeness of it all. "Do not fear, young Keeper," Lyra continued, her tone both comforting and commanding. "You have been chosen for a purpose. Eldoria stands on the brink of chaos, and you are the one destined to restore balance." Alex swallowed, his pulse pounding in his ears. "But I'm just a librarian. I'm not a hero or a warrior." "Why me?" Lyra's eyes softened, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "Because the true strength of a keeper lies not in their might, but in their heart. You have the courage to seek the unknown, the wisdom to learn, and the compassion to care for others. These are the qualities that Eldoria needs." As her words settled over him, Alex felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. For the first time, he wondered if perhaps his quiet life had been a preparation for something far greater. "The path ahead will not be easy," Lyra warned, her form flickering slightly as if caught between worlds. "The dark sorcerer, Malvern, seeks the power of the key. If he succeeds, both Eldoria and your world will fall into darkness. You must find the 3 mystical orbs that can seal our realm from his corruption." Before Alex could respond, the light around Lyra dimmed, her form fading into the mist once more. "Seek the Orb of Bravery, young keeper. Your journey begins now. As the clearing returned to its natural state, Alex stood alone with Theo, his heart racing. He felt the weight of the key in his pocket, its cool metal pressing against his leg like a silent promise. He had come to this world by accident, but now he had a purpose. Come on, keeper, Theo said, his tone surprisingly gentle. The adventure awaits. With one last glance at the empty stone circle, Alex tightened his grip on the key and followed his tiny guide into the whispering shadows of the enchanted forest, his fears slowly giving way to a growing sense of purpose. As Alex and Theo pushed deeper into Eldoria's mystical landscape, the air grew cooler, and the trees seemed to lean closer, their branches whispering secrets in a language he couldn't quite understand. The forest felt alive, almost sentient, as if every leaf, root, and flower watched his every move. Small, glowing insects flitted through the air, tracing delicate patterns of light, and the ground beneath his feet felt softer, as though the earth itself recognized his presence. Theo, scampering just ahead, suddenly stopped and twitched his nose, his bright eyes narrowing as he looked into the shadows. Alex tensed, his heart thudding in his chest. He glanced around, half expecting some monstrous creature to burst from the underbrush. From the darkness, a figure emerged, a tall, ethereal woman with flowing silver hair and robes that seemed to shimmer like moonlit water. Her eyes, sharp and luminous, fixed on Alex, and he felt as if his very soul was laid bare. You have crossed into sacred ground, keeper, the woman said, her voice echoing like a song sung by the wind itself. I am Lyra, the guardian of Eldoria, and I have waited long for your arrival. Theo bowed his head, his tail flicking nervously. Alex swallowed, trying to find his voice. I am sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I just found a door in. Lyra held up a slender hand, silencing him with a single, graceful gesture. You carry the key, she said, her eyes gleaming. The ancient power that binds this realm is now in your hands, and with it, the responsibility to protect both our worlds. She stepped closer, the air around her shimmering. Beware, keeper. Malvern, the dark sorcerer, has long sought the key. If he gains it, he will tear open the veil between our worlds and unleash his darkness upon all. Alex felt a chill creep up his spine. The weight of the key in his pocket suddenly felt heavier. But why me? I'm just a librarian. I'm not a warrior or a hero. Lyra's expression softened, and for a moment, her eyes seemed to gaze into his very soul. It is precisely because you are ordinary that you have been chosen. True strength comes not from power alone, but from the courage to step into the unknown and the heart to protect what you love. She reached out, her hand hovering just above his chest, and Alex felt a warm, comforting energy flow into him. The path ahead will test you, keeper. You must find the 3 mystical orbs that hold Eldoria's ancient magic. Only then can you seal the portal and protect both our worlds. Before Alex could respond, Lyra's form began to dissolve into a swirl of shimmering light, her final words lingering in the cool air. Find the orbs, keeper. Time is not on your side. As her presence faded, Alex felt the weight of his new destiny settle upon him. He looked down at Theo, who gave him a reassuring nod. Come on, keeper, the squirrel said, his voice tinged with a mix of pride and urgency. The real adventure begins now. With a deep breath, Alex straightened his shoulders, his heart beating with a strange mix of fear and anticipation. He had taken the first steps into a world of magic and danger, and there was no turning back. As Alex and Theo ventured deeper into the heart of Eldoria, the vibrant colors of the enchanted forest gradually gave way to darker, more foreboding terrain. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. The trees twisted into grotesque shapes, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Shadows seemed to move just beyond the edge of Alex's vision, whispering his name with every rustle of the leaves. Theo, ever the brave guide, remained unfazed, his small paws confidently padding over twisted roots and uneven ground. We're nearing the Cave of Echoes, he said, his voice low. The first orb, the Orb of Bravery, is hidden within. But be warned, the cave tests not just your strength but the courage of your heart. Alex's pulse quickened. He had read countless tales of heroes facing their fears, but living through one felt entirely different. As they approached the cave, its entrance loomed like a dark, gaping maw on the side of a jagged cliff. Strange, wispy mist curled from the depths, swirling around their feet as they stepped closer. Before entering, Theo stopped and turned to Alex, his eyes more serious than usual. Listen, Alex, he said, his voice steady but firm. This place will dig into the darkest corners of your mind. It will try to break you, to twist your fears against you. But remember, courage is not the absence of fear. but the will to face it. Swallowing the lump in his throat, Alex gripped the key in his pocket, feeling its cool, reassuring weight. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The darkness closed in around him, the temperature dropping sharply. The air grew thick and oppressive, each breath echoing off the walls like a heartbeat. As his eyes adjusted, he saw that the walls of the cave were covered in a strange, shimmering moss that pulsed faintly, casting eerie shadows. The ground beneath his feet felt uneven, as if the stone itself shifted with every step. Suddenly, a whisper broke the silence. "Failure, coward, alone." The words slithered through the air, seeming to come from all directions at once. Alex froze, his heart racing. He looked around, but the cave appeared empty. Then, the shadows began to twist and ripple, forming shapes that stirred long-buried memories. The first figure to appear was his father, tall and stern, his eyes filled with disappointment. "You always hide in your books, Alex. You're too afraid to face the real world. You'll never be more than a scared little boy." Alex stumbled back, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The cave amplified his fear, making the shadows grow darker, their whispers louder. His mother's voice joined the chorus, soft but tinged with regret. "I had such hopes for you, Alex. But you never took a risk, never stepped out of the safety of your little world." The shadows shifted again, forming the figures of old classmates, their laughter sharp and cruel. "Look at him. Too scared to even try. Pathetic." Alex felt his knees weaken. He clutched at his chest, the weight of their words pressing down on him, threatening to crush his spirit. His mind filled with the echoes of past failures and missed opportunities. But then, Theo's voice cut through the darkness, sharp and clear. "Alex, remember who you are. Remember why you came here." The words snapped Alex back to reality. He felt the key in his pocket grow warm, pulsing against his thigh like a tiny, determined heartbeat. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself to stand tall, his eyes narrowing as he met the shadows head-on. "No," he whispered, his voice trembling but growing stronger. "I may have been afraid before, but not now. I'm here for a reason. I choose to be brave." The shadows flickered, their forms wavering as if weakened by his resolve. The whispers grew fainter, the echoes less certain. With each step Alex took forward, the darkness seemed to retreat, the air around him growing lighter. Finally, as he reached the heart of the cave, the shadows dissolved completely, revealing a small, glowing orb resting on a stone pedestal. It pulsed with a fierce, golden light, radiating warmth and strength. With a deep, steadying breath, Alex reached out and grasped the orb of bravery. It felt warm in his hand, its power surging through him, filling him with a courage he had never known. The whispers faded into nothingness, the cave falling silent once more. Theo scurried to his side, his eyes shining with pride. "Well done, Keeper. The first test is complete." As they turned to leave the cave, Alex felt a new sense of confidence blooming within him. He had faced his fears and emerged stronger, his first true step toward becoming the hero Eldorian needed. As they left the chilling darkness of the Cave of Echoes, the forest around them seemed brighter, the colors more vivid, the air crisper. The orb of bravery, now securely tucked into a small pouch at Alex's waist, pulsed with a comforting warmth. He felt a newfound strength coursing through his veins, the echoes of his past fears now reduced to mere whispers. Theo led them along a winding path through towering trees and whispering brooks, the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath their feet the only sound in the tranquil wood. They had traveled for hours, the sun now casting long shadows across the forest floor, when Theo suddenly stopped, his ears twitching. Before Alex could ask what was wrong, a rustle came from the underbrush to their right. Instinctively, Alex's hand moved to his pouch, gripping the orb tightly. Out of the shadows emerged a figure, tall, muscular, and dressed in worn leather armor, his face half hidden beneath a hood. He carried a long, curved blade at his side, the metal polished to a lethal sheen. The figure stepped forward, his gaze sharp and assessing. "You're far from the safety of the glades, little one," he said, his voice deep and gravelly, his eyes locking onto Theo. Then his gaze shifted to Alex, his expression unreadable. "And you're not from this world, are you?" Theo bristled, his tail fluffing up defensively. "Stay your blade, Kale. This is Alex, the keeper of the key." The stranger, Kale, paused, his eyes narrowing as he took a step closer, the tension in the air thickening. He studied Alex for a long moment, his jaw clenched. Then, with a deep sigh, he sheathed his blade. A keeper, you say? Well, that changes things. Cale straightened, crossing his arms over his broad chest. I've heard whispers of a new keeper, someone who would stand against Malvern. But I didn't think the stories were true. Alex, still catching his breath from the sudden encounter, managed to find his voice. I'm still figuring things out. I've only just begun this journey. Cale's lips curved into a slight, approving smile. Then you'll need all the help you can get. The path ahead is full of dangers far worse than echoing fears. Theo gave a sharp nod, his tiny eyes gleaming. Cale is a rebel warrior, a former guardian of the old realms. He knows these lands well, and his blade is as sharp as his tongue. Alex hesitated, still unsure whether to fully trust this warrior. But he felt a strange kinship with Cale, a sense of shared purpose, of kindred spirits drawn together by fate. All right, Alex said, his voice steadier now. If you're willing to stand with us, we'd welcome the help. Cale's smile broadened, and he gave a small, respectful nod. Then let's not waste time. The dark forces grow bolder each day, and the second orb won't wait forever. Together, the unlikely trio set off deeper into Eldoria, their shadows stretching long behind them as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the forest in shades of gold and violet. The trio moved swiftly through Eldoria's ever-changing landscape, the air around them growing cooler as they entered a dense, ancient forest known as the Whispering Woods. The trees here were taller than any Alex had ever seen, their twisted trunks reaching toward the sky like the arms of forgotten giants. Thick, dark vines curled around their bases, and the air was filled with the soft rustling of countless leaves, each whispering secrets of the past. As they ventured deeper, the light from the orb of bravery flickered faintly, its golden glow struggling to pierce the dense canopy above. Shadows danced at the edges of Alex's vision, and strange, whispering voices seemed to echo from every direction. Stay close, Cale whispered, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. These woods have a mind of their own. They test the hearts of those who pass through, and not all survive. Theo's tail twitched nervously as he scampered ahead, his tiny nose twitching as he sniffed the air. We need to move quickly. The trees here have long memories, and not all of them are friendly. Alex tightened his grip on the orb of bravery, its warmth a comforting presence against the rising tension. As they continued deeper into the woods, the whispers grew louder, forming words that seemed to scrape against his mind like icy claws. Turn back. You do not belong, you will fail. The voices grew more insistent, the shadows stretching longer, their edges sharp as blades. Alex felt a chill run down his spine, the weight of the forest pressing in around him. He glanced at Cale, who moved with practiced ease, his eyes scanning the darkness for hidden threats. Suddenly, the trees ahead seemed to shift, their trunks bending and twisting as if alive. Roots burst from the ground, writhing like serpents, blocking their path. Before Alex could react, one of the massive roots shot toward him, its bark-covered surface crackling with dark energy. Instinctively, Alex raised the orb of bravery, its golden light flaring brightly. The root paused, shuddering as if in pain, before retreating into the ground. The whispers around them grew more frantic, their tone shifting from taunting to fearful. Cale seized the opportunity, drawing his blade in a flash of silver. He slashed through the nearest root, the enchanted steel cutting through the twisted wood with a sharp, crackling sound. Theo darted between the roots, his tiny claws digging into the soft earth as he scrambled to stay ahead of the shifting maze. Keep moving, Cale shouted, his blade flashing again as another root lunged toward them. Heart pounding, Alex followed, the orb's light pushing back the encroaching darkness. They stumbled into a small clearing, the whispers fading into a distant murmur as the trees pulled back, their twisted branches retreating like the limbs of startled creatures. Breathing heavily, Alex looked around, his eyes wide. The clearing was unlike anything he had seen so far. In its center stood a massive, gnarled tree, its roots stretching deep into the earth, and its branches reaching high into the sky, crowned with leaves that shimmered like silver in the dappled sunlight. Theo scampered up onto one of the twisted roots, his tiny chest heaving. This is it, he said, his eyes bright. The heart of the Whispering Woods. If we can reach it, we might just earn the forest's trust. Kale nodded, his blade still in hand, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of further attack. Stay close, Keeper. This place is alive, and it doesn't take kindly to intruders. With a deep breath, Alex stepped forward, his heart pounding as the whispers returned, softer now, but still present. As he approached the ancient tree, the ground beneath his feet pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, as if he was walking on the heartbeat of the forest itself. Reaching the base of the tree, he hesitated, the orb of bravery in his hand flickering like a nervous flame. Then, slowly, he placed his free hand against the rough bark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the tree shuddered, its branches creaking like the groan of an old ship. The whispers around them intensified, the leaves rustling in a frenzied dance. Suddenly, the tree's bark began to glow, its twisted surface splitting open to reveal a small, hidden alcove. Inside, nestled among the roots like a precious gem, lay the second orb, a shimmering sphere of deep, emerald green, its surface alive with the swirling patterns of wind and shadow. Alex reached out, his fingers trembling, and lifted the orb of wisdom from its cradle. The moment his hand touched it, the whispers ceased, the trees around them standing tall and silent, their test complete. As the light from the second orb bathed the clearing in a soothing, green glow, Alex felt a rush of clarity and understanding flood his mind. The forest's secrets whispered to him, their voices now filled with respect rather than scorn. Kale sheathed his blade with a satisfied grunt, and Theo gave a small, triumphant squeak. 2 down, 1 to go, the squirrel said, his tiny eyes sparkling. Alex smiled, the weight of the orb in his hand a reminder of how far he had come. But even as he felt the warmth of victory, a shadow moved in the distance, watching from the darkened woods, its eyes filled with cold, unrelenting malice. As they continued their journey, the path ahead grew more treacherous. A dense, ghostly mist crept through the trees, swirling around their ankles and whispering faint, disjointed phrases in a language Alex couldn't understand. The air grew colder, and the sun's warm light faded behind a thick blanket of fog, casting long, twisted shadows across their path. Kale's jaw tightened as he surveyed their surroundings, his hand never straying far from his blade. Theo's fur bristled, his tiny eyes darting from shadow to shadow, his ears twitching at every distant rustle. This mist, Kale muttered, his voice low and tense. It's unnatural. It reeks of dark magic. Alex clutched the 2 orbs tightly, their combined warmth a small comfort against the encroaching cold. His breath came in shallow puffs, each exhale turning to mist in the frigid air. He felt a prickle of unease, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end as the shadows around them seemed to shift and whisper his name. Suddenly, a shape moved in the fog, a tall, cloaked figure, its eyes glowing faintly like the embers of a dying fire. It drifted silently through the mist, its long, skeletal fingers reaching toward them. "Stay back," Kale snarled, his blade flashing as he stepped between the figure and Alex. The creature paused, its head tilting to the side as if curious. Then, with a low, echoing growl, it lunged forward, the mist swirling around it like a cloak of shadows. Alex felt a surge of fear, his heart hammering in his chest. But as the creature approached, the orbs in his hands flared to life, their combined light cutting through the fog like a blade. The figure recoiled, its growl turning to a shriek as the light washed over it, dissolving its dark form into wisps of smoke. Breathing heavily, Alex glanced at his companions. "We need to keep moving. Whatever that was, it's not the only thing hiding in this mist." Kale nodded, his eyes hard, and Theo gave a nervous flick of his tail. Together, they pushed forward into the thickening fog, their every step echoing through the whispering shadows. As the dense fog began to thin, the twisted forest slowly gave way to a vast, ancient valley. Towering stone spires rose from the ground like the teeth of some colossal, long-dead beast, their surfaces etched with the weathered runes of a forgotten age. Alex felt a strange, electric energy in the air, a low hum that vibrated in his bones as they stepped into the open space. Ahead, half hidden by the swirling mists, stood the ruins of an ancient city. Crumbling towers and shattered archways stretched toward the stormy sky, their walls covered in thick, winding vines and patches of glowing moss. The remnants of a grand civilization, frozen in time, lay before them, a city long abandoned but still echoing with the whispers of its past. Cale tightened his grip on his blade, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the towering structures. "We must tread carefully here," he said, his voice a low growl. "This place is steeped in old magic, and not all of it is friendly." Theo scampered ahead, his tiny paws pattering softly against the cracked stone. "I've heard tales of this place," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "The city of Alarion, once the heart of Eldoria's greatest empire, before the dark times." Alex followed, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and awe as they crossed into the heart of the ancient ruins. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, as if the very stones remembered the bloodshed and betrayal that had brought the city to its knees. As they moved deeper into the city, strange symbols began to glow faintly along the walls, their blue light pulsing in time with Alex's heartbeat. He felt the orbs in his pouch respond, their warmth intensifying as if recognizing the ancient power that lingered here. They entered a vast, open plaza, its center dominated by a massive, cracked fountain shaped like a coiled dragon, its stone scales glistening with the dampness of ages. The water within the fountain shimmered with a ghostly blue light, casting rippling patterns on the broken stones around it. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the corner of Alex's vision. He spun around, his pulse racing, but saw nothing. He glanced at Cale, who had also tensed, his eyes scanning the darkened doorways and broken windows that lined the plaza. "We are not alone," Cale muttered, his hand resting on his blade, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Theo froze, his small body trembling as his nose twitched. Something is watching us." Before they could react, the air around them grew colder still, the mist swirling into tight spirals that coalesced into ghostly forms. Dozens of shadowy figures emerged from the darkness, their eyes glowing faintly as they drifted closer, their forms flickering like the flames of dying candles. One of the figures stepped forward, its skeletal hand reaching out, the bones creaking with each movement. Its hollow eyes locked onto Alex, and when it spoke, its voice was a rasping whisper, like dry leaves scraping against stone. "Keeper," it said, the words stretching into a long, drawn-out hiss. "You tread upon sacred ground." Alex felt the orbs at his side grow hot, their light pulsing like a heartbeat, and he instinctively reached for them. The warmth of the orbs spread through his fingers, steadying his breath and calming his racing heart. "I don't mean any harm," Alex stammered, taking a cautious step back. "I just seek the third orb." The ghost's head tilted, its hollow eye sockets seeming to focus on the glowing orbs at Alex's side. For a long moment, it was silent, the only sound the distant whisper of the wind through the ruins. Then, slowly, the figure withdrew its hand, its bony fingers curling back into its chest. "You seek the orb of honor," the ghost whispered, its voice tinged with a hint of ancient pride. "It lies within the heart of this city, guarded by the spirits of those who fell defending it. Prove yourself worthy, Keeper, and the orb shall be yours." As the ghost drifted back into the shadows, the other spirits followed, their forms dissolving into the mist once more. The air grew still, the oppressive weight of their presence lifting slightly, though the echoes of their words lingered in the chill air. Cale sheathed his blade, his jaw clenched, his eyes still scanning the shadows. "They will not make this easy for us," he said, his voice low. "Be on your guard." Alex swallowed hard, his heart still pounding. He tightened his grip on the orbs, their warmth a small comfort against the cold fear that clung to him like the mist. With a final glance at the swirling shadows, the trio pushed deeper into the ruins, their footsteps echoing through the empty streets as they moved closer to the heart of the ancient city where the final test awaited. As they moved deeper into the heart of Alarion, the air grew colder, the shadows darker, and the whispers of long-dead voices louder. Crumbling statues of ancient warriors lined their path, their stone eyes staring blankly into the mist, their once proud forms now chipped and weathered by centuries of neglect. The path led them to a massive stone archway, its surface etched with intricate runes that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Beyond the arch, a grand hall stretched into darkness, its towering columns and shattered stained glass windows a haunting reminder of the city's former glory. Theo paused at the threshold, his tiny body trembling slightly. "This is it," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the low, echoing whispers that filled the hall. The Hall of Fallen Heroes. Cale stepped forward, his eyes hard, his jaw set. "Stay close, Keeper. Whatever trials lie within, we face them together." Alex took a deep breath, the weight of the orbs at his side a comforting reminder of his purpose. He stepped through the archway, the air growing colder still as he crossed the threshold. The moment he entered, the runes on the arch flared to life, their blue light casting long, flickering shadows across the ancient stone. The hall was filled with the ghostly forms of fallen warriors, their spectral bodies clad in rusting armor, their ghostly weapons clutched tightly in skeletal hands. They turned as one to face Alex, their empty eyes glowing with a pale, unearthly light. One of the spirits stepped forward, its armor etched with the marks of countless battles, its eyes burning with an ancient, unquenchable fire. It raised its sword in a silent salute, its blade passing through the air with a soft, whispering sound. "Keeper," it said, its voice deep and resonant, echoing off the ancient stone walls. "To claim the Orb of Honor, you must prove your worth. Face the trials of courage, wisdom, and honor, and earn your place among the warriors of old." Alex swallowed, his heart pounding as the ghostly warriors formed a circle around him, their eyes unblinking, their swords raised in silent judgment. The final test had begun. As Alex stepped into the center of the grand hall, the air around him grew colder, the shadows stretching long and dark across the cracked stone floor. The ghostly warriors closed in, their hollow eyes glowing with ancient power, their rusted armor clinking softly as they formed a tight circle around him. Theo and Cale remained just outside the ring of specters, their eyes wide with concern. Theo's tiny claws dug into the cracks of the stone, his fur bristling, while Cale's hand never left the hilt of his blade, his muscles tense as he watched the spirits closely. "Keeper," the lead spirit intoned, its voice deep and echoing, the sound vibrating through Alex's bones. "You seek the Orb of Honor, the final piece needed to awaken your true power. But to claim it, you must face the echoes of your past, the fears, the doubts, and the burdens you carry. Only then will you prove yourself worthy." Before Alex could respond, the air around him shimmered, and the shadows deepened, swirling together to form a swirling vortex of memories. He felt a sudden, sharp pull, as if the very fabric of reality had twisted around him, drawing him into the heart of his own mind. The grand hall faded away, replaced by the familiar, musty scent of his bedroom back in the real world. Alex blinked in confusion, his head spinning. He was standing in his old room, the one he had left behind when he first stepped through the hidden door. The walls were covered in the same old posters, the shelves lined with his favorite fantasy novels, their spines worn from countless readings. For a moment, he felt a flicker of relief, a longing for the comfort of his old life. But then he noticed the shadows in the corners of the room, darker and thicker than they should have been, shifting and whispering like the spirits in the hall. The door creaked open, and his father stepped into the room, his face a stern mask of disappointment. "Alex," he said, his voice cold and sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Why do you waste your time with these foolish dreams? You hide in your books, running from reality. You'll never amount to anything if you don't face the real world." Alex's heart clenched, the old wounds of doubt and fear reopening. He felt the weight of his father's words pressing down on him, the same crushing sense of inadequacy that had haunted him for years. Before he could respond, the scene shifted again, the walls of his room dissolving into the chaotic din of a crowded cafeteria. He was back in high school, standing alone at the edge of the lunchroom, his tray clutched tightly in his shaking hands. Around him, his classmates laughed and chatted, their faces twisted into mocking grins as they whispered and pointed. "Look at him," one of them sneered, their voice dripping with contempt. "Always alone, always afraid. He'll never fit in." Another scene flashed before his eyes, his mother's worried face, her gentle eyes filled with concern as she watched him retreat further into his books, withdrawing from the world bit by bit. "You can't hide forever, Alex," her voice echoed, the pain in her tone cutting deeper than any blade. The memories closed in around him, the shadows growing thicker, their whispers louder, their edges sharp as broken glass. He felt his chest tighten, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The weight of his past, his fears, his failures, all crashed down on him at once, threatening to crush him beneath their dark, oppressive mass. But then, from the depths of his despair, he felt a familiar warmth, a soft, steady glow that pulsed against his chest. The orbs, still clutched tightly in his hands, flared to life, their light pushing back the shadows, filling him with a surge of strength and clarity. "No," Alex whispered, his voice trembling but growing stronger with each word. "I'm not that scared, lonely boy anymore. I've faced my fears, I've fought for my friends, and I've stood against the darkness. I choose to be brave." As he spoke, the shadows around him flickered, their whispers faltering, the echoes of his past losing their power. The cafeteria faded away, the walls of his bedroom dissolving into mist, the faces of his tormentors breaking apart like smoke in a strong wind. The grand hall of the fallen warriors reappeared around him, the circle of ghostly soldiers still watching, their eyes unblinking. But now, their postures had changed, their heads tilted in silent approval, their ghostly forms standing a little taller, their swords held a little higher. The lead spirit stepped forward, its empty eye sockets glowing with a brighter, more vibrant light. "You have faced the echoes of your past," it said, its voice filled with a newfound respect. "You have proven yourself worthy." With a deep, echoing rumble, the ghostly warrior reached into its chest, its spectral hand emerging a moment later clutching a small, shimmering orb. Its surface glowed with a pure, silver light, its energy radiating honor and strength. It extended the orb to Alex, its hollow eyes locked onto his. "Take this, Keeper. The orb of honor is yours." Alex reached out, his fingers trembling, and grasped the orb. The moment his hand touched it, a surge of power flooded through him, the combined energy of all three orbs filling his heart with a warmth so intense it brought tears to his eyes. The ghosts around him lowered their swords in silent salute, their forms shimmering before slowly dissolving into the mist, their ancient duty at last complete. As the last of the spirits faded into the darkness, the hall fell silent once more, the echoes of their whispered oaths lingering in the cool, still air. Alex took a deep, steadying breath, his heart pounding with a mixture of relief, pride, and awe. He had faced his fears, overcome his doubts, and earned the respect of the fallen warriors. He was no longer just a scared boy from the real world. He was the keeper of the key. With the final orb in his grasp, Alex felt a surge of confidence and power unlike anything he had ever known. The three orbs, now pulsing in unison, filled him with a warmth that pushed back the cold of the ancient hall, their combined energy humming through his veins like a powerful heartbeat. Kale stepped forward, his eyes filled with pride as he clapped a heavy hand on Alex's shoulder. "You did well, Keeper," he said, his voice carrying a rare note of admiration. "You have proven your worth. The spirits of Alarion have accepted you as one of their own." Theo scampered up to Alex, his tiny paws pattering against the cracked stone floor. "I knew you could do it," he squeaked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Now, with all three orbs, we can finally confront the Dark Wraith and restore balance to Eldoria." As they exited the Hall of Fallen Heroes, the fog that had blanketed the city began to recede, the swirling mists pulling back like the tide, revealing the full, awe-inspiring scope of the ancient ruins. The towering spires and shattered battlements, once cloaked in shadow, now gleamed in the soft, golden light of the setting sun, their broken forms casting long, sharp shadows across the cracked stones. Their path took them through the heart of the ruined city, past the crumbling remnants of once mighty towers and shattered statues of forgotten kings. The air grew warmer as they descended into a deep, winding canyon that cut through the heart of the mountain range, the jagged stone walls towering high above them like the ribs of some colossal, long-dead beast. At the end of the canyon, the ground sloped upward, leading to a massive, jagged crack in the mountain wall. A faint, reddish light flickered within the crack, casting long, flickering shadows that danced along the stone like the flames of a distant fire. Kale paused at the entrance, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade, his eyes hard. "This is it," he said, his voice low and grim. "The heart of the mountain. The final battleground." Theo's tiny claws clicked nervously against the stone as he peered into the crack, his whiskers twitching. "It's not too late to turn back," he whispered, his voice tinged with fear. "Once we step inside, there's no going back." Alex took a deep breath, the orbs in his hands pulsing warmly against his skin. He felt their power surging through him, their combined strength a steady, reassuring presence. He had come too far to turn back now. With a determined nod, he stepped forward, his boots crunching against the loose gravel as he crossed the threshold into the heart of the mountain. The air inside was hot and dry, thick with the acrid stench of sulfur and burning stone. Molten rivers of glowing lava snaked through the cavern floor, their bright, liquid surfaces casting long, flickering shadows across the rough, jagged walls. The sound of distant, echoing roars filled the air, the furious, primal growls of creatures forged in the heart of the earth itself. They moved carefully, their steps slow and measured as they navigated the narrow, crumbling pathways that wound through the cavern. The orbs in Alex's hands pulsed more strongly now, their light cutting through the thick, smoky air, casting long, sharp shadows against the rough stone. As they approached the center of the cavern, the ground began to shake, the deep, rumbling tremors sending loose stones skittering across the floor. The air grew hotter still, the walls glowing a fierce, angry red as the lava flows thickened, their surfaces bubbling and churning like the surface of a boiling cauldron. Suddenly, the ground split open with a deafening crack, a massive fissure tearing through the heart of the cavern. From the depths of the crack rose a towering figure, its massive, muscular form covered in thick, black scales that gleamed like polished obsidian. Its eyes burned with a fierce, red light, and its long, curved claws scraped against the stone as it rose to its full, terrifying height. The Dark Wraith. It let out a deafening roar, the sound echoing through the cavern like the crash of 1,000 thunderclaps, shaking the walls and sending cracks spiderwebbing through the stone. The heat intensified, the air growing so thick and oppressive that Alex felt his lungs burn with every breath. Kale drew his blade, its silver edge gleaming in the fiery light. Theo bared his tiny teeth, his fur standing on end as he prepared to spring into action. Alex tightened his grip on the orbs, their combined power flaring brightly in his hands, their light pushing back the darkness that radiated from the wraith like a living thing. This was it, the final confrontation. The moment that would decide the fate of Eldoria, the test that would determine if Alex was truly worthy of the title of Keeper. With a deep, steadying breath, he stepped forward, his heart pounding, his mind clear, the light of the orbs burning brightly in his hands. The battle had begun. The Dark Wraith loomed before Alex, a monstrous, malevolent force that seemed to exude a dark energy so thick it suffocated the very air around them. Its glowing, red eyes locked onto Alex with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. The cavern trembled beneath their feet as the Wraith's voice, low, guttural, and filled with centuries of anger, echoed through the mountain. "You dare challenge me, Keeper?" the Wraith sneered, its voice like the sound of 1,000 cracks in stone. "You think the power of these orbs will save you? You are nothing but a child, lost in a world of illusions. Your journey has been futile, and your destiny was sealed the moment you set foot in this cursed land." Kale raised his sword, its silver blade reflecting the molten glow of the cavern. "We've come too far to turn back," he growled, his voice strong and unwavering. "Your reign of darkness ends now." Theo, though small, stood firm beside them, his eyes glowing with determination. "We won't let you destroy Eldoria," he declared, his voice high-pitched but resolute. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he tightened his grip on the orbs. The combined energy of the three glowed brightly in his hands, their light cutting through the oppressive darkness like a beacon. Despite the Wraith's overwhelming presence, Alex felt a sense of clarity, a calm that had eluded him for so long. He had faced his fears, conquered his doubts, and now, he stood at the precipice of his destiny. Without warning, the Dark Wraith lunged, its claws slashing through the air with terrifying speed. The ground shook as its massive form descended upon them. Alex reacted instinctively, raising the orbs in front of him, their power flaring like a burst of light. The wraith's claws collided with the orbs, a shockwave of dark energy crashing against the light. The impact sent Alex stumbling back, the force of the blow knocking him to his knees. His vision blurred as a searing pain shot through his body, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to give in. "Is this the best you can do, Keeper?" the wraith taunted, its voice a cruel mockery. "Your light is weak. It will not be enough to defeat me." But Alex could feel the orbs responding, their energy resonating with his own, fueling his strength. He stood slowly, shakily, but his resolve was unwavering. "I am not alone," he whispered, the words a silent affirmation of everything he had learned along the way. With newfound strength, he raised the orbs above his head, their light intensifying, pushing back the suffocating darkness that clung to the wraith. A brilliant beam of light shot from the orbs, striking the wraith square in the chest. The wraith roared in pain as the light scorched its obsidian flesh, its body shuddering under the power of the attack. But the wraith was not defeated yet. It recoiled, its eyes burning with fury. The cavern rumbled as the wraith began to gather dark energy around it, its form swelling with a black, crackling energy that threatened to consume everything in its path. "You may have light," the wraith hissed, "but it is nothing compared to the darkness I control. You will fall, Keeper, as all who defy me have before." The air grew thick with the wraith's energy, and Alex could feel his strength waning as the dark force pressed in around him. His legs buckled, and for a moment, it felt as if the very earth was pulling him into the abyss. The wraith's dark energy surged toward him, wrapping around him like chains, constricting tighter with each passing second. But then, something deep within him clicked. He had faced his past, conquered his fears, and now, he realized, it wasn't the orbs alone that gave him strength. It was the choices he had made, the courage he had found in the face of fear, the bonds he had formed with those around him. It was his heart, the heart of the Keeper, that gave him the power to stand against this darkness. With a shout, Alex broke free from the wraith's grip, his hands glowing with the combined light of the orbs. He focused all his energy on one final, desperate strike. The light around him surged, a blinding explosion of pure, radiant power. The wraith let out a final, deafening roar as the light engulfed it, its dark form disintegrating into a cloud of smoke and ashes, vanishing into nothingness. The cavern fell silent, the oppressive heat dissipating, and the lava flows stilled. Alex collapsed to the ground, his chest heaving with exhaustion, the orbs dimming in his hands. He had won. Kale and Theo rushed to his side, their faces filled with relief and awe. "You did it, Alex," Kale said, his voice filled with respect. "You defeated the wraith." Theo hopped onto Alex's shoulder, his tiny paws patting the young man's cheek. "We did it. Eldoria is safe." Alex smiled weakly, looking down at the orbs in his hands. They had fulfilled their purpose. Together, they had restored balance to the world. But more than that, he had discovered something even greater. His true power came not from the orbs, but from his own heart. The cavern that had once echoed with the roars of battle was now quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun filtering through cracks in the stone above. The world outside had been forever changed. The skies above Eldoria, once filled with a perpetual darkness, now sparkled with the warmth of the sun, casting a golden hue over the land. With the defeat of the Dark Wraith, the balance of Eldoria had been restored. The once ruined cities began to rebuild, their people emerging from the shadows of fear to embrace a new, hopeful future. The land, long ravaged by the Wraith's curse, began to heal, its once barren fields bursting with life once again. Alex, Kale, and Theo stood together at the foot of the mountain, looking out over the vast landscape. The orbs, now dim and still, rested in Alex's hands, their purpose fulfilled. "You've done it, Keeper," Kale said, his voice filled with pride. "The world owes you its future." Theo nodded, his tiny eyes wide with admiration. "You really are the hero of Eldoria." Alex smiled, but there was a sadness in his heart as he looked at the land he had come to love. "I didn't do this alone," he said softly. "I couldn't have done it without you too, and without everyone who helped me along the way." With a deep breath, he lifted the orbs high above his head. The orbs glowed one final time, their light filling the air with a brilliant radiance that seemed to sweep across the entire land. As the light faded, the orbs dissolved into sparkling dust, carried away by the wind. Alex stood for a long moment, gazing at the horizon. He had found his place in this world, his purpose as the keeper. He had faced his past, conquered his fears, and emerged stronger than ever. And as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting its final golden rays over Eldoria, Alex knew that his journey was far from over. For now, the world was at peace, but there would always be new challenges ahead. And he would face them, just as he had faced the darkness before, with courage, hope, and the strength of his heart. Eldoria will always be safe, Alex whispered to himself, as long as the light of hope never fades. And with that, he turned toward the future, ready to embrace whatever came next. As the final rays of the setting sun cast their warm glow across the land, Alex stood tall, looking out over Eldoria with a heart full of peace. The darkness had been defeated, but the journey had only just begun. The light of hope would forever shine in the hearts of those brave enough to carry it. In the end, it wasn't the strength of the orbs, nor the power of the wraith, but the courage and unity of those who dared to fight for a better world that prevailed. Alex had discovered something far more precious than any weapon, the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. And with that spirit, Eldoria would flourish once again. So, as Alex stepped into the future, he left behind a legacy that would inspire generations to come. The story of a hero who believed in the power of light, in the bonds we share, and in the unyielding strength of hope. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey through the heart of Eldoria. If you enjoyed this story, if it sparked something within you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps the adventure alive, and who knows, maybe another hero's journey is just around the corner. Until next time, remember, the light of hope never fades, and the greatest adventures are those that lie ahead. Subscribe now to continue the journey.